Hello, welcome to Steven Shinder Reviews in video form on day 15 of Chucktober, reviewing the Chucky franchise. And I'm finally on the season 1 finale, An Affair to Dismember, released November 30th, 2021. Written by Don Mancini and Harley Payton. So, yeah, Don returns to get in the writing seat of this one, along with Harley, who's worked on a couple other episodes of this, I think. And the director of this one was Jeff Renfro. So looking at Jeff's credits, it looks like he directed some music videos in the 90s, or four of them anyway. Um, One of them being Crash Test Dummies Get You in the Morning. So maybe the dummies aspect is why he got the gig. I don't know. But he's also done some TV movie stuff, Stranger with My Face, some TV series stuff, 6 episodes of Being Human. Is that the original or the remake? I kind of want to. Well, it's probably the American version, right? Um, yeah. So this Being Human is 2011 to 2014. When the series aired. So it's whichever one that one is. Let's see. Haven, Helix, 4 episodes of Beauty and the Beast, 4 episodes of something called Rogue. I'm not sure what that is. Killjoys. That sounds kind of familiar. So 2 episodes of that. 6 episodes of Bad Blood. 3 episodes of The Hardy Boys in 2020. So yeah, got some credits right there. This episode, it begins with a recap. It begins with the good guy doll voice being like, previously on fucking Chucky, which I thought was pretty funny. I was reminded in this recap that before this episode, Junior and Lexi broke up. So, something that I kind of forgot. If it happened in the previous episode or the episode before. And the Chucky title card also has like the good guy doll packages for this episode. So this picks up right from the end of the previous one where Andy goes into Junior's house and Junior's like, "Oh, my mom killed herself." My and then Andy asks if his dad's there. And he's like, "Actually, he is." And they do this thing where Junior is questioned by Andy and he dances around the truth. Like he gives these answers that are truthful, but still hiding the actual full context. Like he says, "Oh yeah, my dad and the doll were here," but of course his dad is dead and lying around somewhere. So some of the dialogue in this opening scene felt awkward to me, and Chucky also had told Junior that Andy is someone who didn't have the guts to be one of us. And so that makes me think that in the original Child's Play, when Chucky goes after the babysitter, he was probably trying to show Andy, give him a taste of what it's like to be a killer. Like, I think the reason Chucky sticks around for that first night as opposed to trying to go out and find help for a situation or kill Eddie Caputo right away is he wanted to see if Andy, like, if he could corrupt him. Because you gotta remember, these newer entries of the franchise show that Chucky has an MO of wanting to corrupt the innocent. You know, Eddie Caputo as a kid, um, Glenda, obviously, and seemingly Sarah Pierce's daughters, I would think, Barb and Nika, in that Curse of Chucky flashback. So, yeah, I think that's something that he sort of thought about doing with Andy, but then once he realized he needed a new body, he was like, okay, scrap the Andy idea. I'll just switch souls with him or get in the driver's seat in his head or whatever. Um, really surprised that Chucky does not try to kill Andy as Andy searches for him here. Andy even like searches in the bathtub, and it turns out Chucky is in the toilet. I kind of wondered if maybe this was a. I feel like I may have seen someone else point this out that maybe this is a reference to the poster for Ghoulies, an 80s Gremlins ripoff type movie where um, the ghoulies are like in the toilet, and I don't even remember if they were actually in the toilet at all in the film, or if they were, it certainly didn't seem as poppy as the marketing made it seem like on the poster or whatever. But yeah, it's really weird that Chucky doesn't try killing Andy here. Um, so yeah, I feel like that's kind of an oversight there. Is that what's called when oversight like a little mistake type thing? I don't know. It just didn't feel like in character for Chucky to like not try anything while they've got Andy here. So Andy leaves. He says, "If you see the doll, be careful," type thing. He drives off, and then I think what happens next is Chucky brings Junior to his old house. Um, or no, Tiffany arrives there first, and she sees that Nika is not tied up, and it turns out that Chucky is in the driver's seat here and almost kills Tiffany, but she's like, "You need me, Chucky, or the plan won't work." And then we see Junior and his Chucky doll are here, and the Chucky doll tells Nika Chucky to let Tiffany go, saying, "I'm used to having her around," and she's right, and just how it kind of feels like he sees Tiffany as kind of like a just I don't know, like a security blanket in a way, like a stuffed animal to keep around or something, which is ironic. But Tiffany does say, "Thank you, Chucky," and "Fuck you, Chucky," which I thought was funny, like the different reactions to the different Chucky. And then when um, the Chucky doll runs up to her and she sort of, I guess she like gives it a kiss or something, and Junior has a face of visible confusion and maybe feeling weirded out about all this. Something that really bothers me here is Junior would recognize Tiffany here as the woman that said she was having an affair with her father, or his father. Sorry, I'm mixing my words up. Um, and so why is there not a dramatic moment here where he's like, "You're the woman who was at the wake, who was with my dad," and why is there not this conflict within him about whether he can trust her? Like, I feel like he should be connecting the dots here. Some of this really could have been saved by it, like in the edit, um, like having some sort of filter thing or moving the frame around so that it seems like Junior is having a conflict within himself and is really losing it and not sure like what's real and what isn't type thing. But he seems like he is just going along with what's happening, and he even reacts a couple of times. It does a smile like he's like fine with everything that's going on. He even does like an ooh reaction when uh Tiffany slaps Nika. So it's really odd, like all the stuff going on here. Um so there ends up there's this truck that has 72 Chucky dolls on it. They send it on its way, and more on that later. And Tiffany tries to get the Chucky doll's attention, but he's occupied with talking to the Nika Chucky, who mentions, um, getting, getting a lot of action and whatnot. And then Tiffany kind of insinuates that I think the implication is that Chucky uh, like has fun with himself, like the Nika Chucky and maybe one of the Chucky dolls or something. It's really weird, and all the stuff that Nika has been through is really disturbing. Whether it's a couple of weeks, so like it seems to have been originally intended, or if it's 4 years, like I've been trying to reason with the Chucky timeline. Like Nika has really been through it, and but Tiffany gives like the reason he sucks speech to Chucky, basically saying that he is the most self-involved person she knows. Um, and somehow I think she slaps the Nika Chucky when she says that Tiffany is not a real lady or something, and that snaps Nika out of it. Like the Chucky that possesses her is gone for the moment, and she's on the floor. And I feel like Nika, in Curse and Cult of Chucky, like she would have tried harder to crawl away, but it's just like it feels too easy the way Tiffany steps on. I don't know, remember if it's her hair or part of her coat or whatever, but the way that Nika is just lying still and not really trying to get away, it's just so that we see the argument between Tiffany and the Chucky doll play out, and Junior is kind of just sitting there. Like it feels like there are moments where the characters just lie around or sit around and do nothing while the other couple of characters have their moment in the spotlight. It feels really awkward. Like when I tried to write my books, I tried to take into account what would the other characters in the room be doing while these two are talking or whatever. And like realistically, wouldn't Nika be trying harder to crawl away? But instead, uh, they have this whole discussion. Chucky and Tiffany, and Chucky tries to get Tiffany to kill Nika, and Tiffany really does not want to. So then uh, she has a knife and she's sort of hesitating, and then Chucky tells Junior to do it. Um, and there's also oh, I glossed over like the whole like army of Chuckies thing. Um, like at one point, Chucky suggests that Junior might have to kill Devin, and you can tell that Junior is a little bit conflicted, but that doesn't really go anywhere. Um, and when there's the army of Chuckies, it's explained that they came to life via Chucky corrupting an innocent person. So it feels like this is sort of filling out the lore. In Cult of Chucky, there were only a few dolls, and so I think maybe to keep Chucky from being too overpowered, seeming too OP, they put in these rules that in order to have a lot more Chuckies, that he needs to corrupt someone and have that innocent person kill someone else, which I think was a smart way to go about it, just to limit what Chucky can do. Um, I imagine that the more times he would try splitting his soul, maybe the more he would feel thinned out or being split apart or something. So I kind of imagine that in the 4 year gap between Colt and the TV show, maybe there were attempts to split his soul and other dolls, but they realized there were drawbacks to that, and maybe Kyle was trying to track down Chucky and Tiffany in these instances, while Andy was in Harrogate or something. So yeah, and I think the interaction with the army of Chuckies is funny. When Chucky is explaining the rules to them of like uh, who they who they can kill, or like don't kill anyone under 5 or 6, which is a really strange rule. Um, yeah, I don't know. It feels kind of out of place, like saying that rule when Chucky is Chucky. Like he's not gonna make any exceptions, really. I don't know. Um, so yeah, the army of Chuckies was on the truck that I mentioned. But getting back to the argument, um, Junior is told to kill Nika, and he approaches her, and he's like, "Who is she?" And Chucky's like, "That's not important." I also realized that in the previous episode, Devin asked Anika who she was, and you might think, wouldn't he recognize her because of the Urban Legends website article and how it supposedly shows a picture of Fiona Dourif from Cult of Chucky. But sorry, I was checking something. But yeah, I think this confirms the picture of Tiffany and Nika from Bride and Colt were just for the audience's benefit, and maybe the article doesn't even show photos; it just mentions the names. But yeah, so before Junior can do anything, Tiffany uses her knife to behead the Chucky doll, or leaves the head hanging for a little bit. So he has like this upside down view, and basically she has her Harley Quinn moment, breaking up with Chucky. But of course, there's no redemption really for Tiffany. Uh, she's still very much unhinged. And so she throws the doll head, and there's a moment where Junior looks like he's gonna try to take action here, like he's gonna stab Tiffany, maybe. And I think this is a moment where they could have really leaned into the whole "you manipulated me" type thing, or "did you really cheat with my dad" type thing. But no, like it's pretty much just Tiffany is like, "Who are you gonna trust to get you out of all this, me or this doll?" And so what ends up happening is, yeah, Tiffany takes out this some sort of suitcase type thing. She says that Glenda gave it to her and that they have exquisite taste. So another mention of her child. And it turns out that this case has a bomb in it, like it's some sort of trap. So it really makes you wonder, did Glenda give just the outs exterior of it and then Tiffany modified it, or was the bomb put in there by Glenda? Like it really kind of makes you think. So it's a trap for Andy and or Kyle, basically. Um, yeah, I watched this episode this morning. Same with the previous episode. Saw yesterday morning, but yeah. She gets in the car. Nika is also put to sleep with a syringe. Um, I don't know why they didn't just do this the moment Nika was back in control. That would have solved the problem of like, why is Nika just lying still, not really trying to escape? You could have her like put to sleep and then have the whole Junior go and kill her type thing while she's like that. Like I think that would have solved a bit of the awkwardness of this scene. But yeah, Nika is asleep and she's put in the car. Tiffany is driving this car and Junior is sitting next to her, and he has a Chucky doll. I was trying to figure out where this Chucky doll was it just lying around in the house and they forgot to put it on the truck or something. But Junior asks, "Can I keep him?" And Tiffany's like, "All right, but you have to clean up the mess." So they drive away, and Devin is of course still captive in the house. He's supposed to be the bait. So Kyle has met up with Jake and Lexi and filled them in on the whole rules of the curse, like the spell that brought this army of Chucky dolls to life, and they're all up to speed about how Junior was corrupted in order to. Well, when she shows up, is as the empty, unpossessed Chucky doll that the delivery guy had, whom Jake intercepted, as that one comes to life. So I guess that one came to life when the army of Chuckies came to life, and before it does the here's Johnny type thing that Chucky failed to do in Seed of Chucky. But then Kyle shoots it through the window of the door and then comes in and, yeah, takes out that doll. So after filling in Jake and Lexi on all this stuff, uh, they're drinking coffee, but it turns out that the coffee is full of something to put Jake and Lexi to sleep so that they don't follow her and don't get involved in this whole thing, which is pretty noble that Kyle is thinking about their safety. And she goes to the Charles Lee Ray childhood home. Andy has arrived there and he sees the Chucky head, but he realizes there's a trap. Kyle opens the door. Andy says, "Kyle, no!" And like the good guy doll was also used to lure Kyle in by saying, "Help, help me" or something. But she trips over the laser thing, which activates this bomb, and from the outside we see the explosion, the fire, and so you kind of wonder, like, did anyone make it out alive, or who's safe and who isn't? And then after a commercial break, it's the next morning. Jake and Lexi are up again, and you kind of wonder if Devin is dead, but Devin finds Jake and fills him in on the junior stuff and refers to Tiffany as the woman who was at the wake. So again, like, I think further confirming that the urban legends site didn't have a picture of Tiffany. Like, yeah, I know she's in the body of Jennifer Tilly, but she looks a lot like Tiffany, especially with the how her hair is. So yeah, I think the urban legends website did not have the photos that were just for the audience's benefit. So they regroup and are trying to figure stuff out. At the charity thing, uh, the screening of Frankenstein, um, Lexi's mom introduces um, the the secret celebrity who was going to be tied to this whole event, and it turns out to be Jennifer Tilly. She introduces her as actress and professional poker player, and I previously thought the poker thing was just a nod to the episode where she and Nika were playing poker, but I did a quick Google, and apparently she actually does play poker. Like, it's a whole thing. Like, I didn't look too deeply into it, but um, yeah, I guess Jennifer Tilly is really good at poker or something. I don't know. So she does this whole spiel and is like everyone should have a good guy doll and gives one to Caroline. And that's trouble right there. And during the Frankenstein screening, Lexi's parents they've been going through some marriage counseling, and it seems like they're finally getting along. Caroline and the Chucky doll are like sitting together. Um, and Chucky's like, "This is my favorite part," at the part where this girl is in peril because of the Frankenstein's monster. But Lexi meets up with Junior, and I guess they're like behind the screen on which this film is being projected. And Junior says we should get back together, and Lexi keeps arguing like, This isn't you, Junior. You're that sweet boy that blah blah blah." And Chucky's like, "You're not a boy. You're a man, and you got to do a man's work," type thing. I kind of wish we had seen more of Junior's softer side in the series in order to support some of this. So, like, I kind of wish there had been more hints of Lexi and Junior's relationship, beyond, like, outside of whenever Lexi was mean. Like, I maybe if we had seen a bit of what they were like before this show, like maybe a year prior or something, like a little flashback or whatever. So I don't know. Some of this felt really clunky. Um, but Chucky kills Nathan, Lexi's and Caroline's dad, and then the mom comes back and she tries feeding him popcorn or something, but realizes he's dead, and there's this whole panic as Chucky wreaks havoc in the theater. So people run out, and Chucky the one that Junior has, is trying to get Junior to kill Lexi, but Junior fights off that Chucky and kills him, but that Chucky stabs Junior, so Junior also ends up dead. In some ways, I don't know if Junior should have been killed here. I'd be kind of curious. I mean, I guess he'd have a bad fate after all this, if all the murders are pinned on him or something. But I think that could have been potentially interesting. Um, I don't know. It just felt like such an easy way out, like a cop out to just kill him off in this finale. As eventful as the finale is. Um, but Jake ends up confronting the Chucky doll that Caroline had. Everyone has run out, and Jake is trying to run after this Chucky, and he trips, and the Chucky doll tries jumping at him, and Jake has him in his hands, and Chucky's like, "You're probably wondering, how's this doll so strong?" And Jake is like, "It makes no sense," and Chucky's like, "The power of Damballa," or something like that. So retcon of the century there, like pretty much implying that, well, the way I see it is that the power of Damballa makes it so that the strength that the human Charles Lee Ray would have gets sort of compact within the doll, and it's like the same volume, mass, or whatever, despite the doll being smaller. Kind of like the TARDIS in Doctor Who, like it's bigger on the inside type thing. That's kind of how I see it. But Jake does this whole speech, as he has Chuck. He eventually gets Chucky against the wall, with his hand around Chucky's neck. So really leaning into that Lakeshore Strangler ammo. Um, and Devin is also here. And Chucky says, "I did you a favor killing your dad." And Jake is like, "I did want my dad to be hurt, but after it happened, I was pissed, and well, I'll never uh, get the chance to reconcile with him." And Chucky's like, "Your dad would never have accepted you." And Jake is like, "He would if he had met Devin." And then Chucky, as much as he acts like he's accepting, he says this thing where he makes you believe maybe otherwise, like maybe he wouldn't really be accepting. And so that provokes Jake, and he uh, strangles him to the point where Chucky's eyes pop out. I thought this was a really creative kill for the series and the franchise in general, really. So yeah, Jake and Devin, like Jake has this line where he's like, "Don't say that about my boyfriend," type thing, which I think could have been delivered a bit less awkwardly. It kind of feels like he said it because it felt like the thing to say in a dramatic moment like this, rather than it feeling organic. But yeah, it does get the point across that Jake and Devin are together now. Um, but yeah, like I think Chucky. I'm not so sure that Jake's father, Lucas. I was trying to remember which name that twin had. Whether he would have eventually accepted Jake. I mean, I feel like a lot would have had to change. Maybe it would have taken a year or something. Like I don't know. I really don't know much. Um, these types of situations, they vary from family to family. But just based on what we've seen of Lucas and how unpleasant of a person he is, like I don't know. I don't know if he would have eventually accepted Jake, or if he would have tried changing him, or like trying to get him to be quote unquote normal. Um so preventing him from being his true self. So like I don't know. Um but it did feel like Jake was very much in the moment, like full of all this anger against Chucky. So I thought that was really believable. I'm just not sure if he was right about the idea that his father would have eventually come around, but I guess we'll never find out. So there you go. Um, so the trio plus Caroline and Lexi's mom are outside in front of the theater, and we see Tiffany telling a delivery driver to get the dolls in the truck to the airport. Um, and uh, as she walks to the car, Andy sneaks up on the driver, knocks him out, tosses him out of the truck, and then he looks in the rearview mirror, notices the trio, and the trio see him, and they're like, "Look, it's Andy!" And Andy just gives a thumbs up to them, and oh, maybe that'll be the thumbnail, thumbs up. I don't know. Um, yeah, I don't know which one looks better, or maybe that won't be the thumbnail. I don't know. Um, like, does it look better like that, or yeah? Okay, it looks weird to me, like seeing it on the thing, but maybe it won't be the thumbnail. I don't know. But this felt kind of weird. It felt awkward as well. You know, the trio is just standing around, seeing what's happening. It kind of felt like if you've ever played Dungeons and Dragons, it kind of feels like one of those moments where the players have finished their encounter and then they see one of the important NPCs go over to something and take care of it for them, and uh, in order to tie up loose ends, and then the NPC gives them a thumbs up or something, and so the players are like, oh, "Okay, things are fine now. We won," type thing. Like, I don't know, it just felt really awkward. Um, and Andy, as he drives the truck, he flips off Tiffany. It bothered me that he didn't so much as try to. I don't know, why didn't he like try ramming the truck against Tiffany's car? He knows that Nika is still somewhere out there, like in danger, maybe captive. Like, why didn't he try doing something? Try to maybe get answers out of Tiffany. Like, I don't know. And the trio doesn't really do anything to Tiffany, even though she's basically like across the street. Like, what was the whole deal with that? Like, again, it just feels like the characters are just standing around and just letting things happen. But as Andy is driving the truck away, um, the Tiffany doll, you know, the one we saw at the end of Cult of Chucky, um, you know, Tiffany had split her soul and put it in the Tiffany doll, and points a gun at Andy, telling him where to drive. And this, I guess, mirrors Child's Play 2 when Chucky has the gun and um, tells Kyle to drive. So yeah, that was a little parallel I noticed this time around. And we see that the truck is driving toward an airport, you know, the exit that leads to an airport. And we don't see the results of this until the first episode of the next season, which more on that tomorrow. But the next scene is the trio going to the cemetery where Junior and his parents are buried. There are no years or dates included on these gravestones, probably because the people making the show didn't want to get too specific and maybe mess things up. But it also comes across like whoever made these didn't want to pay for the extra engravings, so I don't know. And Miss Fairchild is also watching from afar, and we hear in the voiceover, "We've been through a lot, and we can't tell anyone what happened because they won't believe us, not even Miss Fairchild." And so they've come out stronger as a trio of great friends. Well, with Jake and Devin, it's more than friends, but yeah, like Lexi has had her full on redemption arc. Really sad that she lost her boyfriend. And as this is happening, we see a leather gloved hand um, of someone watching them from afar. And if you remember in the previous episode, Kyle and Andy got these leather gloves. So there's something there. But yeah, I remember like this was a hugely speculated point 3 years ago when this aired. I think someone even wondered if it was Glenn or Glenda's hand, which was a bit of a reach. And then we get this a shift in tone, you know, away from the drama of the cemetery scene and more into a comedic sit down with Chucky type thing. He's like sitting by the fire and it's It's really bizarre. Like he talks about the season and the kills that happened in the season, counting them. I think it's like 20 or 21 or something. And says it's probably best that we don't show you how I killed the cat. Um, and he acknowledges the dangling threads. And he's like, I know what you're thinking. What about Andy? What about Nika? Type thing. He also mentions writers with great works like Austen, Shakespeare, and Mancini. So a little bit of Mancini patting himself on the back right there. Um, but yeah, it felt a little jarring, this final scene, but I guess it was kind of fun. It leans into the comedy of the series. The series is more of a horror comedy than Curse and Cult were. Um, but yeah, this was it's a finale that leaves you wanting more, wanting to see more of what happens after, but it also may leave you wanting or wishing that there had been more for certain aspects across the season. Like the whole thing with Junior, like I still feel like it's a reach to have him convinced that he should not even questioning that maybe Chucky was behind everything, or not having him react really when he sees that Tiffany is in cahoots with him. Um, it just feels like some things could have really been ironed out in the writers' room. Um, but that being said, this episode and this whole season were still very entertaining. There are definitely those flaws. Um, Oh, I forgot to mention that during the argument between Tiffany and Chucky, she reveals that she was the one who called Detective Norris the night that he was found and gave him a tip off of like where uh, Chucky was that led to him being gunned down in the toy store. So, regarding the timeline of that, when I first watched this episode, I was trying to think out the timeline in my head. So it's like, okay, so that night Chucky says he's going out, and then Tiffany makes a phone call and he goes to Sarah, who is captive, and then the cops arrive and then he gets chased to the toy store. But having rewatched Curse of Chucky and reread that article that's in there, I think the timeline is more like uh Friday before getting gunned down, so November 4th. Chucky kidnapped Sarah Pierce, and then it still would have been during the day. He says that gotta pick up Barb from the daycare. Um, so that Friday, I guess, the cops arrive, having been alerted by Sarah. I know previously I was sort of implying that Tiffany's phone call kind of fixes the plot hole of Sarah being tied up and yet still being able to call the cops. But with this knowledge, I think that maybe what happened was Sarah was able to somehow loosen up her binds and maybe make the phone call and then pretend she's bound again. But um, or maybe she made a call before getting tied up. I don't know. There's still messiness there, but I think what the timeline is that that flashback and curse happened on that Friday, and then there's a manhunt in the suburbs, highly publicized, so everyone knows that Detective Norris is on the case, and then Chucky tries to lie low within the city of Chicago for a few days, and when he goes out on the night of the 8th, going into the early hours of the 9th, um, Tiffany probably knows where. Maybe she's like followed him at in some previous point and said like seen where he likes to hang out late at night away from her, in the city anyway, not in the suburbs. So who even knows if she's aware of the whole Sarah situation? But yeah, then she calls Detective Norris. Maybe she tells him the area he'd be in, or maybe she tells him the license plate, or I don't know. Um, and then you could have the beginning of Child's Play. So prior to 3 a.m., November 9th, maybe Detective Norris still dresses up like a woman to lure Chucky, either as uh someone to get with or someone to kill. I mean, we saw that Chucky killed a woman he brought home in the flashback in the previous episode, and then the events of Child's Play transpire, and yeah. So I know people say that this retconning of Chucky's backstory feels too contradictory and too messy, but I think the way I've thought it out, it feels like it could make sense, and I do kind of like the nuances of it, but I think they've pretty much um, now run out of chances to redefine the backstory. I think they're fine with leaving it as is now. Um, and yeah, regarding Nika, we see that she is still captive under Tiffany, and Tiffany has cut off her arms and legs in case Chucky gets possession of Nika. Again, it's a really horrifying fate for Nika. And again, like, wouldn't the heroes, Andy and the trio, like, want to try to find Nika or figure out where she is? Like, still, why is this not an immediate concern of theirs? It's really weird. Um, Also, as an aside, it's kind of surprising that back in Curse of Chucky, they did not have a reveal where it turns out, Nika is actually Chucky's daughter, and the whole Durif father-daughter connection. But I'm kind of glad that they didn't do that because it would have been very cliche at that time, and still would be. Like, it's pretty much too late to even insinuate that type of connection, and it would be even weirder because it's like, oh, Tiffany's with her ex-husband's daughter now. Like, it would have been even creepier. Like, what's going on with Nika, like what Tiffany puts her through is already horrifying, but yeah, it really is irritating how Nika has fallen from main character status, and Andy is like the very safe legacy NPC type character. It feels a bit imbalanced here, and yeah, and even knowing what happens later in the series, it's still really bizarre to look at in this first season. Um, so yeah, I kind of grapple with my score for this finale with how it leaves things hanging, and even keeping in mind how things are handled later on. But yeah, I mean, there were some entertaining parts of this, but really strange moments. So I think I think like the previous episode, I'm gonna keep this at an 8.25 out of 10. And I'm sure there are people out there who think it's crazy that I like rate all of these episodes higher than Bride of Chucky, but like I've said, Bride of Chucky is really entertaining. But then from David's death onward, it loses me and it feels like I'm not as like the stuff that happens in the third act feels kind of boring to me. But yeah, I think this is a pretty strong first season. Um, what would the average scores be if I add them up? Let me calculate that. So let's see. 8 plus 8.25 plus 8.25 plus 8.5 plus 8.75 plus 9 plus 9 plus 9, and divide that by 8. Okay, so it averages out to an 8.6 this first season. From what I remember, season 2 was my least favorite of the 3 seasons. Hashtag renew Chucky, hashtag save Chucky, hashtag review Chucky. Um, but yeah, I'm curious to see if my view is the same when I rewatch this next one. Yeah, season 1 is the only season I've watched multiple times, even prior to this review series. So it'll be interesting rewatching season two and then season three. But yeah, we're basically halfway through Chucktober, having gone through the seven Chucky movies that lead into this series, and then having reviewed the first season of this show. And so 16 consecutive days left. That's 8 episodes of season two and the 8 episodes of season three. So um, it's gonna be fascinating. Um, and wow, this review is like, is this the longest episode of this review series I've done? Maybe it is. This finale is also the longest episode of the entire Chucky series. It was listed at 54 minutes, but I think it's closer to 55. The finales of the other two seasons are also long, but not as long as this one. So, yeah, I'll be back tomorrow talking about the Chucky season 2 premiere, which that one is titled Halloween 2. So, not to be confused with either of the Michael Myers films of the same names. So, yeah, thanks for tuning in to Steven Shinder Reviews in video form for Chucktober. And so, yeah, thanks for what do I even say at the end of this? I've been talking so long for like 46 minutes. It's, yeah, I don't know. Thanks for tuning in and see you all next time.